The Last of Us Part 3 is currently in the earliest stages of development. There's no trailer, nor much of any kind of information on what the game is going to be about. It apparently began life as a narrative about Joel's brother Tommy following the events of the previous game, but creative director Neil Druckmann says that it has since shifted into something entirely different. So essentially, we know absolutely nothing about this game, and since Naughty Dog's next game is set to be their yet-to-be-revealed fantasy IP, we probably won't know anything about it for quite some time. The big question that most people are probably asking about this game is, does it need to exist at all? Which was a similar question that most people had about The Last of Us Part 2 as well. In the documentary Grounded, The Making of The Last of Us Part 2, Druckmann and his team questioned if they could come up with stories worthy of continuing what many considered to be a perfect ending, with The Last of Us Part 1, as I guess it's now called. And to the team at Naughty Dog's credit, they pretty much knocked it out of the park. The Last of Us Part 2 is a great game that was willing to take a story and characters that we all fell in love with and pick them apart piece by piece, shining a light on the imperfections of the father-daughter story that we had come to perceive as infallible between Joel and Ellie. At the end of that first game, what Joel did to protect Ellie was wrong, both because of all the people that he murdered and the agency that he took away from Ellie's monumental decision. The Last of Us Part 2 showed us the consequences of Joel's actions, and over the course of the game, you even start to feel a little bit of sympathy for his killer. In the bleak world of the Last of Us franchise, everyone is just merely trying to survive. The cycle of violence that perpetuates their existence is nuanced, complicated, and it's something that just can't be broken down into simple good-bad binaries. It builds on the original game, questions its themes, and takes some huge creative risks that no other AAA game has done before or since, really. It justified its own existence, and now The Last of Us Part 3 is going to have to do the same thing all over again. Much like Part 1, The Last of Us Part 2's ending is a tough act to follow. We last see Ellie leaving her guitar behind after failing to play a song, as she now lacks the fingers required to physically bridge one of the final connections that she has remaining for the man that she considered to be her father. It's a depressing ending, but an appropriate one that leaves all kinds of doors open for a sequel. The Last of Us Part 3 could go anywhere and do anything, and hopefully it does. But again, like Part 2, to justify its own existence, Part 3 is going to have to ask some massive questions and take some huge creative leaps. It could follow Ellie as she attempts to get back on her feet and find meaning in her life where revenge is no longer the defining factor. Or we could follow Abby and Lev as they try to find that new home. Or hell, maybe the story will follow Tommy as it attempts to flesh out a character that had become pretty unlikable by the end of Part 2. It's perfectly fine to be hesitant or even afraid of what this game could wind up being, as a lot of trilogies have tended to end with very disappointing final installments. But I'll remain cautiously optimistic because I was apprehensive about Part 2 and came out of it pleasantly surprised. So here's hoping that The Last of Us Part 3 finds a way to surprise me yet again.